Welcome to episode 4 of this series where I've been introducing my philosophy to healthy living. I've been describing in the previous episodes my 3 pillars or principles that I think are essential for healthy living. I've already covered diet and exercise, and today and in the next episode I'm going to be covering the 3rd and sort of final pillar, which is positive lifestyle habits which feed your mental and physical well-being. So in the next episode, I'll be talking to a leading psychologist, Marcel Crinian, and we'll be discussing positive mindset and self-sabotage. But today I want to be looking at your physical well-being and really just your approach to healthcare. Today I have with me David Needleman, a registered and professional homeopath. Welcome, David. David, I'm delighted to have David join me today, not only because he is a renowned homeopath, really well known within the profession, and a real champion for alternative health, but also because, and I'm declaring a personal interest here, he has been very instrumental in shaping the way I practice homeopathy, and in fact just my overall look at alternative health and incorporating that into the way I work and live. So thank you for that, David. Your approach is just simple, practical, and certainly without any ego. How do you stay grounded in your practice and not let ego get in the way?
I don't know, to be honest. I suppose the simple answer is that I feel that my role, whether it's as a pharmacist or as a homeopath, is to support the patient in their choice. And it's not me to make that choice.
Well, that was certainly how I felt. And I then saw even with my sister, who I've then since sent her to see you, is the empowering of the patient. You have a very calm way about you, which is lovely. So I think that's kind of key too, isn't it? Empowering the patient, making them feel that they're responsible or have input.
That's a very important part, because people do come, and a lot of people are very skeptical about complementary medicines of all types, not just homeopathy. But once they find that things begin to work for them, there's a different level of commitment. Yeah. There's also a different level of information that they give you.
I sometimes feel with some people, there's a real lack of body awareness, just not knowing that, well, when that happens, then that's what happens, then my back hurts, so maybe I shouldn't do the first thing, Are you finding that on the helpline?
Actually, on the helpline, it can be quite difficult.
Oh.
As far as people come with preconceived ideas as to what they're actually...
what they've got.
They'll come up, they'll say, I have tonsillitis that you can prescribe.
Okay.
I have a headache. Well, that's fine, because at least a headache is a starting point.
Yeah.
Tonsillitis is an all-encompassing sore throat. Yeah. But as you said, is it left-sided, right-sided, both sides? What else is going on with that sore throat? With headaches, is it left-sided, right-sided? Is it on the forehead? Is it on the top of the head? Is it better or worse for pressure? Is it better or worse for heat or for cold? Is movement or light a problem? And you hone it down until you get the remedy that you think is going to be right for that person at that moment in time. Now, on the helpline, you can't see them.
All right, yeah.
There's body language, and you can't see people's expressions.
Yeah, that's observational element is really useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be fair, I guess that also then includes that whole holistic approach, which is a word that's become associated with alternative healthcare as well. But that level of self-interpretation, noticing patterns, that sort of thing, that doesn't always come so easily to people, getting that involved with your symptoms. And I've seen with my son, it takes a bit of training, So now he already comes to me and goes, my nose is running, it's clear, it's this, is that. He already starts with the list. But
great.
Yeah.
They pick up very quickly what you want to know.
Yeah.
And those secrets.
Yeah.
Which often there are with adults.
Oh, right, yeah.
They tell you what they think you want to hear, whereas children tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a terrible indictment, unfortunately, of patients in general, but it's actually true, because they're always trying to please the therapist, whatever therapy it is, where actually what you want is the actual real situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd that, because you would think that there, as an adult, you'd appreciate that you're in an environment where the person is there to help you. So let them see warts and all what's there to see. But there's still that element of trying to go, look, teacher, I got it right. Look, you know, yeah, that's interesting. So you've been very instrumental in kind of getting this integrated approach going. I know that involved in the parliament, you contributed to the parliamentary group that at the House of Commons that on integrated health. What did that lead to? Well,
it's really a discussion group,
okay.
An interest group.
Oh, I see.
Complementary medicine, and we have speakers there. We don't make policy.
Okay.
But we do have speakers that give us their experiences of setting up new situations, maybe new services, incorporating other complementary therapies into their particular service. And then obviously the questions at the end. And it's really a networking and information system.
Brilliant. And does that still meet, or was that just a one-off?
No. It still meets. I've had 4 meetings this year already.
Brilliant. And do you feel that there is progress? I mean, towards, because look, I said to you, I mean, I qualified over 15 years ago, but before that, I was already interested in getting involved in reflexology, aromatherapy. My own background, you know, put me into, I mean, I was seeing a homeopath from the age of 10, which was very unusual, certainly in South Africa, which is very progressive and established medical system. My grandmother was big on natural remedies and poultices and things like that. So I was around that all the time. But certainly when I first got into it, oh gosh, it was always seen as very woo-woo, very esoteric, very Eastern philosophies. But I have to say, even in the last, every year, as it were, it seems to have gotten, people are way more, the medical profession has been far more inclusive, far more open-minded. Equally, the alternative healthcare industry has raised their game and presented a more uniform front, try to be a little bit more scientific, which is controversial in itself because it is different to conventional medicine. But that's got to be positive, right? I mean, integrated approach, are you for that?
My philosophy is very simple. I think the patient requires what the patient requires at the time they require it.
Yeah.
So in other words, why make somebody or allow somebody to suffer because of philosophy?
Well, that is what I was trying to say in a nutshell earlier, which is exactly what you influenced for me. You made it, because again, at the time when I was just getting into it, you felt like if you dared even, well, it was more tested when I had my son, who, as you know, has his allergies and asthma. And I know it really tested my belief and everything I stood for when I suddenly had to be thinking about using inhalers or going into hospital, and suddenly he was having cortisone treatment and things like that. And I suddenly kind of, you know, suddenly, you know, especially when it's not yourself, you know, you can suffer for your art, but when you're looking at a young child, you know, you really made me, you and another doctor that I worked with, an integrated practitioner, made me really feel okay about that, because it is just that. I mean, now I have to say, homeopathy and other things is predominantly what I use, certainly in a very preventative way with my son. But if we need to go to hospital, thank God every day that it's there. You know, the cortisone is there, it can help. Obviously, it's not something I'd like to make a habit of, and I do tell my son off if he's just been silly and negligent, because we know the triggers, right? And if he lets things get out of hand, that's where we end up. But is that not, that's what I've always felt is slightly lacking in our approach to healthcare in general, is that we kind of wait for that final breaking point. And this is where I was talking about the body awareness, is that you start to miss the prompts, the little things. Oh, my appetite's changing. Oh, I haven't really, my headache's been this. and then you ignore all those small things, and then suddenly when you're being rushed into hospital or you're being diagnosed with something, now suddenly you're like, wow, where's this come from? You know, this sort of that.
Yeah, people do get triggers.
Yeah.
But also, there is no point in feeling guilt for trying to relieve suffering.
Sure.
You know, you as a therapist need to be healthy in order to help people become healthy.
Sure.
So you need to treat yourself on a number of different levels, on the physical, on the emotional, and on the spiritual levels.
Yeah.
And if that means using reflexology, if it means using acupuncture or acupressure or homeopathic remedies or allopathic drugs at the appropriate time in the appropriate dose, so be it.
Yeah. It's a simple thing, isn't it? Everything in moderation, as it were. Too strong a view in any one direction could be your downfall, really.
Well, I think blinkering is the biggest issue. We have an antagonism by certain people.
Sure.
All complementary medicine. The vast majority of them have no knowledge of what they are decrying.
Yeah.
We also have a situation where therapists are completely blinkered about medical interventions.
Yeah.
That if you've got an appendix, you can't treat that with, spiritual healing.
I remember when I was studying, the example always was, firstly, homeopathy is not a complete system of medicine, which is to say that if I walked out now and was hit by a car and my arm was gaping and open, no amount of arnica is going to stop that bleeding, right? Yeah. No amount is going to sew me back together. Now, by all means, and we can get to that point where I'm just on homeopathic remedies, but, there is a place for both. And we all benefit if everybody... Look, I mean, you already seen over the years with... in mainstream hospitals and things where you now have multidisciplinary teams, where they already recognize amongst themselves, right, we need to tackle certain conditions from every angle. Otherwise, we can't just replace the hip and there you go. We now need to get the physio in. We now need to rehab, So there is an acknowledgement about all the elements coming together. So I have faith that it'll... Pardon? Partially, yeah.
Because you've got to have a certain level of choice, but only with a particular paradigm.
Yeah.
So yes, you're having a hip surgery. So yes, you need physiotherapy, you need occupational therapy, you need nutritional therapy, you may need spiritual therapy, but according to the hospital, you can't have herbal medicine, you can't have homeopathic remedies, you can't have reflexology, you can't have a lot of other issues and other disciplines which are available. Now the government has just earmarked £20 billion over the next 5 years for the NHS. I don't know where they're going to think they're going to get it from, and I don't know where they think it's going to be spent.
Yeah.
At least 2 billion every year, so that's 10 out of the 20 will go on litigation.
Yeah.
It won't go on patient care.
Yeah.
But actually, the NHS could live within its current budget. But there has to be at least 3 major changes.
Okay.
First is central buying, which means you reduce waste.
Okay, yeah.
Huge waste. A pair of gloves in London costs 30 pence. In Leeds, it costs £18.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You get examples of this in the newspapers.
Yes, there's been plenty, yeah.
Nobody does anything about it. The second thing is to introduce alternative or complementary therapists within the medical care team.
Okay, yeah.
Now, some of us have been lucky enough to work in a multidisciplinary situation. I had an NHS practice within a GP surgery. In fact, within 2 GP surgeries. And it was 42 people working out of 1 3-bedroom semi-detached house.
Yeah.
And that included specialists in the normal allopathic specialties, such as a rheumatologist. They had X-ray facilities. They had an asthma nurse. They had a diabetes nurse. But they also had an osteopath, a physiotherapist, a reflexologist, a chiropodist, me as a homeopath, and a lot of other people working there, seeing their patients. Now, that was fine when we had GP fund holding. But when that stopped in 1999, a lot of people were disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Now, if you could reintroduce that, but in secondary, in other words, in hospitals rather than in GP practices, and then roll it out to GP practices later,
Yeah.
you could save, well, at least 100 million a week.
Yeah.
1.2 billion pounds a year in wastage just on the drug budget.
Yeah, exactly that. Because one of the things about, of course, alternative and complementary medicines is that, you know, other than the expense of the therapist's time, the medicines or the actual things are not expensive.
But the therapist's time is considerably less than a consultant's.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in this at the time of this recording, not being aired, it's of course this week is the 70th birthday of the NHS.
Yes.
They mentioned today on the news, and of course it's incredible because again, and this is what's quite ironic really, the whole premise of how it started and where it was coming from, the intention of it was all just so holistic, ironically, you know, and so all-inclusive and like a lot of things, they get ruined when politics and money gets involved, don't they?
Well, one of the biggest issues in 1948 was that Bevan's wife was treated regularly by a homeopath.
Oh, right. Well, okay, so on that, just so high-profile homeopathic users, we of course have Prince Charles and the late Queen Mother were big advocates and openly. Prince Charles in particular, very open about, advocate about integrated health. He was a really good representative of that. And of course, Ainsworth's Homeopathic Pharmacy, where you're the resident pharmacist there in London, have a, what's it called, a royal warrant, right? Where
Well, they had three.
Okay.
But obviously Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mother, sadly passed away.
Oh, so then that obviously, yeah.
The royal warrant from Her Majesty the Queen.
And just to explain to those who don't know, the royal warrant means that they're quite happy to put their name and their name to, and their sort of coat of arms, as it were, to your business or trade. You often see that in different trades and professions.
It's a significant recognition of a supplier.
Absolutely.
To the household.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's also done wonders in, and also now with the internet and people are better educated about things. People like the idea of choice. I just see more and more clients questioning some of the practice, you know, so if the doctor says, okay, I think we're going to do this, they go, well, what about, and can't we rather do this, and I'd rather avoid this. So it's really been encouraging over the years to see patients becoming more informed and more actively involved. And I think that no matter what sort of medicine or healthcare you choose to use, I think that for me is the outstanding thing, is to take responsibility for yourself, your own health, be a participant, notice this isn't right, I haven't been feeling right for ages, for a good few weeks now, let me go check it out, hear what they have to say. Don't just sort of go along with it, you know, question, find someone who you trust. I've always joked with my husband that if there's my crack squad and you're one of them, right? I said, these are the people you call. I said, if I'm in a coma and can't speak, these are the people that need to be by my bedside, right? And I think there's in that, because there is something nice about handing that responsibility over to somebody, but you've got to take charge of it. And I've often found in my experience with, like I say, as much as I praise the NHS and it's been fundamental and very helpful for my son, often in very life-threatening conditions with his allergies and things, often with my experience in the hospital environment and then the follow-up appointments afterwards, and I just think maybe this is potentially a product of the system just getting so non-specific, is that if you're not in control of the appointment or managing it, it just runs away with you. And, you know, I'm sure there's a big red mark next to my name on my records when I go to the hospital. But well, yeah, I mean, I just think I go, oh my God, here she comes. But you just think, you know, what about for the person who just goes, oh my word, I've never been ill and now I'm suddenly here and, oh, well, the doctor knows best and, you know, there you go. And not that they don't, but I think sometimes you just kind of have to go, you're allowed a question and the person should be able to explain to you. I mean, I do all the time. I'm having to explain to clients what I'm doing or what my approach is and what I think I can do. And then, you know, we review it. And that's, I think, again, where the ego thing comes into it. I'm not saying that all GPs have massive egos. That's not it. There's also lots of pressures and things. But yeah, I just think people have to become participants and be involved and take part in their healthcare. And yeah, I think that's really essential, no matter what you choose to do.
You've got the two sides of the coin with most doctors.
Yeah.
Most of them today are a little bit more aware,
Sure.
a little bit more open to questioning. They're not the sort of autocratic, you'll do what I say or go somewhere else type. There's a few of them around.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, they're not going to be around for very much longer. The current crop of GPs are usually actually quite pleased if you ask a question. Because I know in your practice and in my practice, if somebody comes to see you or comes to see me, I will take their case history, I'll go into the details, and then I'll make a decision as to what the way forward is that I think they need. But then I'll explain to them why and what I expect to happen. Now, a lot of GPs are now doing that. It's becoming much more holistic.
Yeah.
And you had a situation 20 years ago where, let's say for argument's sake, somebody developed breast cancer. Their children were ignored. Today, somebody develops breast cancer, they look into the children's healthcare because they now realise that these things can be familial, if not necessarily hereditary, but they can also be familial. It's the same with certain eye conditions and same with other situations. Is there diabetes in the family history? Is there heart disease in the family history? Those kind of case-taking situations have changed dramatically over the last 50 years.
Yeah, no, so and I have to say, I mean, there was a time where, I mean, I would have, if I'd worked with somebody and I'd suggested some supplements, or I'd say we'd be doing some, so they struggle with back problems, and we'd be doing a certain type of program or whatever here, and then they would go to their GP, and the doctor would actually say to them, well, why are you doing that? That's not necessary. And what always struck me was, I didn't mind that if in their professional opinion it wasn't helpful, but what always struck me was the person sitting in front of you, our shared client, does think what I'm doing is helpful because they keep coming back. So just from a professional, because I've been in the reverse situation where I've gone, I don't think that's doing any good, but you clearly get something out of it. So it doesn't help me knocking it here in front of you. I've either got to choose to work with that happening, and that's in the background, and continue what I do, or if I really feel it's a hindrance to what I'm going to do, then I would say to you, right, you seem to be happy with that, go on with it, and when you're done, kind of come and see me. And that was always the thing that struck me. I found it unprofessional, but more than that, I thought it was so short-sighted, because again, I then have the person coming back to me now going, in a way, sort of going, I like what you're doing. The doctor says no, kind of, and now I'm left in the position where I have to try to explain his side and my side. And but that has improved over the years. That's much better now. Physios used to never like a personal trainer getting involved. That's the one profession that used to really push back the most. Cardiologists, ironically, the best. The cardiologists I've dealt with on any rehab clients, post serious cardiac surgery and stuff like that, always just too happy to have the patient coming to see me. And I'm always like, please give me some sort of out. I'm really nervous to work with this kind of patient. They're like, yes, just do whatever. Make sure you just keep their heart rate, things like that. Whereas other clients where I'm like, this is one of basic rehab stuff. And they're going, oh, well, the physio says I should lay off. And you go, oh, anyway. So it's improved. It's improved over the years. And that's what's encouraging, because I do my own beliefs. Like I say, I'm quite, maybe that's just because I've also, my profession is in that, I'm quite easily go down that line of natural healthcare. But I particularly said and noticed this with my son's health. is that it really challenged and questioned my belief and all of that, because it is different. It's very easy in some instances to always go for the instant relief, the instant take it away and make it better. And I just worry sometimes that's sometimes a little bit too easily where people go. Sometimes patients sometimes don't like hearing that the solution can be that simple, you know, or it can be easy as, well, just adjust one or two things.
Also, they don't want to experience discomfort.
Yeah, yeah.
Immediately relieved.
Immediately
relieved. You know as well as I do. Somebody has something that needs to be expressed from their body. If you suppress it back in, you're not actually helping.
No.
Whereas if you can allow it to be expressed, even if it's discomforting for a short period of time, but you explain to them that this is a short-term
yeah,
very long-term gain, often they get so much better, so much faster, because they're enabled to express emotion or discharge or a rash, which is allowed to spread, but then it will disappear. Or a cough because it needs to be expectorating rather than sitting in lungs.
Yeah.
So many different situations that require that kind of expression from the body.
Yeah.
And it goes alongside good nutrition, good exercise, general health care.
Yeah. Taking care of the body. Yeah. Resting, recuperating, taking time. So, the constant words that keep coming through there really is enabling the client, empowering them, just making the person feel supported to make the choice that's right for them. And I think that, I guess, would fundamentally, I'm a big fan of homeopathy, but you don't have to go, I don't shove it down everybody's throat. It's worked for me. I'm happy with it. But I think that would fundamentally be the kind of message I pass on with regards to healthcare. Is that just that, be involved, be empowered. Now, David, you have a private practice. I mentioned the helpline. Let's quickly give out the number: 0906 534 3404. That is manned from 9 a.m. to midnight with professional homeopaths there. It's a premium rate number, but I know when you call it, they don't hang around. They just keep you there with quick questions. You should then essentially have the essential homeopathic kit. It's a little homeopathic kit with 42 basic remedies, from which the practitioner will say, okay, or take this or take that. And that you can buy from Ainsworths.com, but Ainsworths is the homeopathic pharmacy.
You can't buy it online.
You can't buy that online, can you?
It has to be either personal visit to the pharmacy or by telephone.
By telephone, okay. But if you go onto Ainsworths.com, you can get all the details. And actually, it's in a lovely part of town, in Marylebone, New Cavendish Street. So it's worth a trip up to London just for that. And of course, that is where people can see you privately as well, New Cavendish Street, or in Golders Green. So that's North London that you're based at there. And you could be reached on, best to give out your email address, which is Needleman, I'm going to say it like that because that's how you spell it, needleman.david@gmail.com. So that's how but don't take up all his time because he's mine. And be prepared to have your appointment taken if I'm suddenly found in a coma and I need you bedside. So last fun question, David, and this is probably for my own personal thing. House is burning down. The world is burning down, so you can never get it anywhere again. You can only run in and save one remedy. What would be your one homeopathic remedy that you would don't leave the house without?
No, you didn't prepare me for this.
I tell you, my go-to one, honestly, I've often thought that because I've traveled with a whole lot of remedies. But the one for me, I've always thought, if I lost my bag or the only thing I could hold, Highprofile self, that for me is I don't know, for me, family.
That is the one that is prescribed the most.
Yeah.
Acutely. Because it covers so many different areas. Yeah. However, the one that most people will have heard of is arnica.
Of course.
And it is obviously a very effective remedy, particularly in trauma situations. You
might actually grab that one just for that. David, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great fun. Lovely to see you. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
No, you're most welcome.